Will we come back after death? What happens after we die? Does our soul move from one body to another? Or is this just an illusion? These questions are among the deepest and most ancient mysteries of humanity. Buddhism offers us answers that are both familiar and profoundly surprising. But here's the real question. Does Buddhism truly teach that we'll come back after death, or is there a far more complex reality hidden beneath the surface? Today, we'll dive into the Buddhist understanding of reincarnation, going beyond surface-level beliefs. Most of us think of reincarnation as a simple process, where the soul transitions from one life to the next. But Buddhist teachings approach this concept in a completely different way. In fact, the very existence of a soul is questioned. So, if there's no eternal soul, what exactly is it that gets reborn? In Buddhism, the concept of rebirth is tied to samsara, the endless cycle of life, death, and rebirth. This cycle is deeply rooted in profound philosophical principles and a striking inquiry into the nature of existence. But here's something fascinating. Buddhism rejects the idea of an individual, unchanging soul. So, if there's no fixed essence, what carries over from one life to the next? This video will uncover the hidden and surprising truths of Buddhist reincarnation. Today, I invite you to join me as we explore the ancient wisdom behind death and rebirth, questioning everything we think we know about life and existence. Get ready, this journey might completely transform the way you see the cycle of life and death. What is the meaning of life? Is death really an end, or can everything begin again? If it does start over, who or what is in control of this cycle? This question points to a great mystery that has preoccupied humanity for millennia: reincarnation. But how is this concept understood in Buddhism? And what sets it apart from the more familiar ideas we find in popular culture? In Buddhist teachings, the cycle of life, death, and rebirth, known as samsara, is grounded in the law of karma. Reincarnation in Buddhism does not hinge on the concept of an eternal soul, as in many other religions. Instead, it focuses on cause and effect, offering a unique perspective that differs significantly from other traditions. The concept of reincarnation has been widely explored in popular culture, especially in films, books, and TV shows. Movies like The Matrix or Cloud Atlas delve into the idea of starting over in a new life, perhaps correcting past mistakes or experiencing a different fate. However, these portrayals often don't align with the Buddhist understanding of reincarnation. In popular culture, reincarnation is typically depicted as the soul moving from one body to another, with the idea that a person's essence continues after death. This notion is closer to the concept of reincarnation in Western spiritual traditions than in Buddhism, where reincarnation is more about the continuation of a cycle of cause and effect rather than the survival of a permanent self or soul. But life, death, and rebirth in Buddhism. At the heart of Buddhism lies the cycle of samsara, which represents the continuous cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. This cycle is driven by karma, the law of cause and effect. In Buddhist thought, samsara is not a positive, fulfilling experience. It is seen as inherently unsatisfactory because it is marked by dukkha, or suffering. Each new life arises from the actions and intentions of the past, creating a cycle that is difficult to escape. When a person dies, their accumulated karma determines their next existence, which may be better or worse, depending on their past actions. But this process is not about reward or punishment. It is simply the natural result of the law of karma. The key to Buddhist practice is to understand this cycle and learn how to break free from it. How Buddhist reincarnation differs from other religions. Reincarnation is a concept that appears in several religious traditions, But in Buddhism, it is quite distinct. In Hinduism, for example, reincarnation is understood as the soul's, Atman leaving one body and entering another. The soul is seen as eternal and indestructible, carrying with it the essence of a person. In contrast, Buddhism rejects the notion of an eternal soul. Instead, Buddhism teaches that there is no permanent, unchanging self. What passes from one life to the next is not a soul, but a stream of consciousness influenced by karma. This stream of consciousness flows from one existence to another, influenced by past actions, thoughts, and desires. It is not an eternal soul, but rather a continuing process of change. This fundamental difference sets Buddhist reincarnation apart from many other religious beliefs about life after death. In Buddhism, reincarnation is not the journey of an unchanging soul, but the continuation of cause and effect through the cycle of samsara. To understand Buddhist reincarnation, we need to explore three key concepts. Karma. Karma refers to the law of cause and effect. It is the idea that every action, thought, and intention leaves an imprint on the future. Good actions lead to positive outcomes, while harmful actions result in suffering. In Buddhism, karma is not a system of moral judgment imposed by an external force, but a natural law that governs the consequences of all actions. Samsara is the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. It is a never-ending process in which beings are caught due to their karma. Samsara is characterized by suffering, or dukkha, because it is marked by impermanence and dissatisfaction. The goal of Buddhist practice is to break free from samsara by transcending desire, attachment, and ignorance. Nirvana represents the cessation of samsara, the end of the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. It is a state of liberation from suffering, where one is freed from attachment, desire, and ignorance. Nirvana is the ultimate goal of Buddhist practice, a state of enlightenment, where the individual is no longer bound by the cycle of karma and samsara. In popular culture, reincarnation is often romanticized as an opportunity to rectify past mistakes or experience a different, more fulfilling life. However, the Buddhist view of reincarnation is not about reward or punishment, but about cause and effect. It is a natural law, rather than a divine system of rewards and punishments. When viewed in the context of the other key Buddhist teachings, reincarnation takes on a deeper meaning. It encourages individuals to confront their actions and the consequences of those actions, taking responsibility for the cycle of samsara they are caught in. This perspective urges people to break free from ignorance and attachment in order to transcend the cycle and achieve nirvana. Is it possible to escape the cycle of life, death, and rebirth? If so, where does the key to liberation lie? These questions are at the core of Buddhist teachings on reincarnation, and the journey to answer them is the heart of the Buddhist path. Is it possible to truly control the life you will be born into next? Can the actions of today shape the future, not only for ourselves but for the next life? If so, how does that affect our choices? And what role does karma play in shaping the rebirth we will experience? These are deep, challenging questions that lie at the heart of Buddhist teachings on reincarnation. In this exploration of Buddhist reincarnation, we will delve into the ways in which karma impacts our next lives. The differences between the two major schools of Buddhism, Theravada and Mahayana, and the intriguing concept of Lama reincarnation in Tibetan Buddhism. One of the most intriguing aspects of Buddhist reincarnation is the idea that our actions today can influence the circumstances of our next life. In popular culture, we often see reincarnation portrayed as something that simply happens to us, something out of our control. However, Buddhist teachings suggest that our current actions, our thoughts, intentions, and behaviors play a significant role in shaping our future existences. In Buddhism, everything is interconnected, and karma is the law that binds everything together. Karma, meaning action, is the energy generated by every choice we make. Whether positive or negative, our actions create a ripple effect that extends into the future. So, in a sense, yes, what we do today does impact the life we are reborn into tomorrow. But the true control comes from understanding how karma works and taking responsibility for the choices we make. Buddhist philosophy tells us that our ultimate goal is to break free from the cycle of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. To do so, we must cultivate wisdom, compassion, and ethical conduct. By doing this, we can purify our karma, and thus, our future rebirths will reflect our progress on the spiritual path. Karma is often misunderstood as a simple reward or punishment system, but in Buddhism, karma is more nuanced. It is the law of cause and effect that governs our actions. Every action, whether positive or negative, leaves an imprint that will manifest in the future. This imprint shapes the circumstances of our next life, including factors like our family, social environment, and even the challenges we may face. For example, a life filled with kindness and compassion may lead to a rebirth in more favorable circumstances, while a life marked by selfishness and harm might result in a more difficult situation. However, it's important to note that karma is not about an external being punishing or rewarding us. Instead, it's the natural result of our actions, which lead to future experiences that are either more harmonious or challenging. Karma does not dictate the exact details of the next life. It shapes the conditions and opportunities that arise based on the intentions and actions of the past. It's also important to note that karma is not limited to a single lifetime. Buddhist teachings suggest that the impact of our actions extends across many lifetimes, forming an ongoing cycle of karmic consequences. This continuous flow of karma is what fuels the cycle of samsara and makes liberation from it such a profound spiritual goal. Buddhism is not a monolithic tradition. It has different schools of thought, each with its unique approach to reincarnation and spiritual practice. Two of the most prominent branches of Buddhism are Theravada and Mahayana, each offering a slightly different understanding of reincarnation and karma. Theravada, often referred to as the teaching of the elders, is one of the oldest schools of Buddhism. It is most commonly practiced in countries like Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Myanmar. In Theravada Buddhism, the focus is on personal liberation through the understanding of the Four Noble Truths and the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path. The goal is to achieve nirvana, the cessation of samsara, and free oneself from the cycle of rebirth. In Theravada, reincarnation is understood as the continuous flow of consciousness that is influenced by karma. The individual self is seen as impermanent, and the cycle of birth and death continues until one attains enlightenment. Theravada Buddhists believe that through meditation, ethical conduct, and wisdom, a person can work through their accumulated karma and ultimately reach liberation. Mahayana, meaning great vehicle, is the larger of the two main Buddhist traditions, with a focus on the collective liberation of all beings. Mahayana is practiced in countries like China, Japan, and Korea. While Mahayana shares the same core teachings as Theravada, it places a greater emphasis on the idea of the bodhisattva, a being who has reached enlightenment, but chooses to remain in samsara to help all sentient beings achieve liberation. In Mahayana Buddhism, reincarnation is viewed as a part of the vast interconnected web of life. The bodhisattva ideal emphasizes that rather than focusing solely on personal liberation, One should work to help all beings escape samsara. Karma, in the Mahayana context, is still a central concept, but it is intertwined with the idea of compassion and the aspiration to benefit others. The Mahayana perspective on reincarnation suggests that an enlightened being may choose to be reborn in order to assist others in their spiritual journeys. The focus is not only on personal enlightenment, but also on the enlightenment of all beings. One of the most fascinating aspects of Tibetan Buddhism is the concept of Lama reincarnation, also known as Toku, the idea that certain enlightened beings choose to be reborn in a specific body to continue their spiritual work. The Dalai Lama is perhaps the most well-known example of this tradition. In Tibetan Buddhism, when a High Lama passes away, a search begins to find their reincarnation, a child who is believed to be the new incarnation of that Lama. The child is often identified through specific signs, visions, or tests that demonstrate their knowledge of the previous Lama's life and teachings. This practice is based on the belief that enlightened beings, like the Dalai Lama, choose to be reborn in order to continue guiding others on the path to enlightenment. The concept of Tokyu is unique to Tibetan Buddhism and adds a layer of complexity to the Buddhist understanding of reincarnation. Rather than viewing reincarnation as a purely individual process, the Toku tradition emphasizes the continuity of spiritual leadership and the role of enlightened beings in guiding their communities across lifetimes. If our actions today shape the future lives we will experience, how do we navigate the path to ensure that our next life and every life thereafter is one of wisdom, compassion, and liberation from the endless cycle of samsara? The answer lies in our understanding of karma, our choices, and our deeper connection to the collective consciousness that binds us all. What if everything we think we know about reincarnation is not as it seems? What if the idea of a soul that continues through lifetimes is not the true Buddhist perspective? Could it be that reincarnation is not even about a literal rebirth, but rather a deeper metaphor for understanding the cycle of life and change? This question challenges some of the common misunderstandings about Buddhist reincarnation. While many people associate reincarnation with the continuation of a soul from one life to the next, Buddhism takes a radically different view. In this chapter, we will address some of the most widespread misconceptions, including the idea of a permanent soul, the concept of anatta is non-self, and the theory that reincarnation might be more symbolic than literal. One of the most common misconceptions about reincarnation, particularly among those unfamiliar with Buddhist teachings, is the belief that Buddhism supports the idea of a permanent soul that is reborn over and over again. In many spiritual traditions, the soul is seen as an eternal essence that moves from one body to the next, maintaining its identity through each lifetime. However, this is not the case in Buddhism. In Buddhist philosophy, there is no permanent, unchanging soul or self that continues from one life to the next. This is where the concept of anatta, a non-self, becomes crucial. According to Buddhist teachings, what we think of as the self is an illusion, a collection of constantly changing physical and mental components that come together in a temporary, ever-evolving way. Rather than a permanent soul being reborn, Buddhist reincarnation is about the continuation of a process. When we die, it is not the self that continues, but rather the karmic energy, a stream of consciousness that influences the conditions and circumstances of the next life. In this sense, reincarnation in Buddhism is not the movement of a soul, but the ongoing flow of actions and their consequences. The concept of anatta is one of the cornerstones of Buddhist philosophy. It teaches that there is no permanent, unchanging self. soul, or essence within any being. Instead, what we consider, or is simply a combination of ever-changing physical and mental states. These states arise, persist for a time, and then fade away without any permanent core. In the context of reincarnation, anatta challenges the traditional understanding of the soul's continuity. Since there is no permanent self, there is no solo to be reborn in the Buddhist view. What continues from one life to the next is not an individual soul, but rather a karmic stream and accumulation of past actions, thoughts, and experiences that shape future existences. This view fundamentally shifts the way we think about the self and reincarnation. Instead of envisioning a permanent you that is reborn, Buddhism suggests that what you consider to be is merely a temporary aggregation of elements that are in constant flux. This realization can be deeply liberating, as it frees us from the attachment to a fixed identity and encourages us to focus on the present moment and the choices we make. Another theory that challenges conventional views of reincarnation is the idea that reincarnation may not be literal at all, but rather a powerful metaphor for understanding life, change, and transformation. In this interpretation, reincarnation is not about the rebirth of an individual soul into a new body, but rather a symbol for the ongoing cycle of life, death, and rebirth that we all experience in different ways throughout our lives. This metaphorical view of reincarnation aligns with the Buddhist understanding of samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. But instead of seeing this cycle as a literal process in which an individual is reborn into a new body, the metaphorical interpretation sees as a symbol for the continuous changes that occur in all living beings. Every moment in life involves a kind of rebirth, a constant shifting of the self with each thought, action, and experience shaping who we are and who we become. In this way, reincarnation can be understood as the ongoing process of growth, change, and transformation that defines human existence. It is not the idea of a soul traveling from body to body, but rather a recognition of the ever-changing nature of life itself. This interpretation allows us to see the concept of reincarnation as a tool for understanding how we navigate life's challenges, how our actions have consequences, and how we can transform ourselves through spiritual practice. What if everything you do today will follow you into the future? Not just in this life, but in the lives to come. Can the choices you make right now shape the person you'll become in your next rebirth? What if the way you live your life today can actually influence your next lifetime in ways you never imagined? As we've explored throughout this video, the Buddhist concept of reincarnation goes beyond the idea of a permanent soul being reborn into new bodies. Instead, it introduces the idea of anatta, the non-existence of a fixed self, and the flow of karmic energy from one life to the next. This understanding challenges our common perceptions of reincarnation, showing that it's not about an individual soul traveling through time, but rather the continuation of actions and their consequences. This perspective also invites us to see life and death as an ongoing process of transformation. Every action we take, every thought we nurture, creates a ripple effect that influences not only our present life, but the circumstances of future ones. By understanding how karma works, we can take greater responsibility for our actions, making conscious choices that lead us closer to liberation from the cycle of samsara. So, how does this understanding of Buddhist reincarnation affect us? If we recognize that our actions today shape our future lives, we are likely to approach life with greater mindfulness. Every moment becomes an opportunity to create positive karma and work towards spiritual growth. By letting go of the attachment to a permanent self and embracing the fluidity of existence, we open ourselves up to profound transformation. Additionally, this understanding of reincarnation and karma encourages us to focus on the present, as it's the actions we take now that will have the most significant impact on our future. The idea of a cycle of rebirth is not just a distant concept, but a reminder that we can influence our lives and the world around us through the choices we make. We are not bound by a fixed destiny. We have the power to shape our future. Now, I want to ask you, how do you think karma and reincarnation could affect your life? How might your actions today shape your future, not just in this life, but in the next? Reflect on these questions as we continue exploring the teachings of Buddhism and the law of karma in future videos. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video if you found it insightful. Stay tuned for more thought-provoking content, and join us as we continue exploring the ancient mysteries of Buddhism and beyond.